saying
We not have any more.
that the here, there's these also.
These are all first.
No, so here, give those out.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, so we're saying that, let's just backtrack 1 second to get a flow from the mimer. We were saying the difference between ma and meya, and we just described it as, again a second ago, but ma is the essence of the Jewish neshama. Meya is the Torah and mitzvahs. And therefore we see that each one has an advantage over the other one. Why? Because the secret essence of the neshama is reliant on the Torah mitzvahs in order for it to be seen. They're the only thing that can trigger it to come out. Because when you do a Torah and a mitzvah, the one that's living inside of that Torah mitzvah is the Jewish neshama that's able to perform the mitzvah. So all of a sudden he has a moment of the spotlight where he can come out of his essential concealment. So therefore, where do we see that the meya is higher than the ma to a certain degree, and that it's mashpia on the ma, it has an influence over the ma. Alternatively, it's the opposite. What's the purpose of the meya, of the Torah mitzvahs, is to arouse this essence of the neshama, which is like this unknowable essential being, which is sort of untraceable, untappable. And so the whole purpose of Torah mitzvahs is that they're there to tap it and to mine it and to get it to come out. And therefore, they are tuffle, they're secondary to the ma, right? Because the purpose of them is ma. And they realize it's all about the ma. Yeah. And they realize that their whole purpose of being is secondary to a higher purpose, which is the ma. That being said, now, we went into Ayin Beis land yesterday. We started on some...
When you say Mea, you're speaking about the
100 brachas, which is really turned into also the Torah. Right? Brachas on the mitzvahs and Torah, these two elements. Into Ayin Beis, the Rabbi brings a mimer from Ayin Beis, where it looks at like a handful of mimerim from Ayin Beis, if you look at the footnotes. Mm-hmm. And he says that Ayin Beis, in order to explain this inyan, starts going into a discussion of mamali and sovev. And it says that the difference of mamali and sovev is even in their source, which is before the tzimtzum. Right? And we spoke about it at length yesterday, but just to sort of clarify here, we say this, that the kav, which is primarily the definition of or mamale, right? The kav is the thin line that comes into the empty space after having gone through the tzimtzum, and that's how it becomes a thin line, because all the rest of the light doesn't come back into the space, it's contracted. So the reason that light can eventually go and invest itself into the vessels of every world that's going to come out after it, it's not just because of what the tzimtzum did to it, right? Meaning to say that you might think that it's exactly identical to all the rest of the light. It's just what? Now there was a tzimtzum, we can isolate one little ray of light, which is now by definition finite. It's left its infinite pool. And that was accomplished by the tzimtzum, which blocked out all the rest of the light. And therefore you could say that the whole reason why the light of the kav can go into vessels is because of the tzimtzum. What the tzimtzum did to it. You could say that, but we're not saying that. We're saying, in fact, even that kav, even when it was still inside of the Or Ein Sof, it had its own little spot in there. It had a different source in the rest of the Or Ein Sof. They were in the same place. It's like in the side of the same seed. You could have like different parts of the cells coming out. When they're in there, they're all kind of one, but there's, in potential, different sources in there. And the source of the kav had its own source, which is called the 10 hidden spheres, the Esrei spheres hagenuzos. So even before the tzimtzum ever happened, there was already a kav inside of there, which would have theoretically been ready to invest itself inside of vessels should the tzimtzum happen. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're called Esrei spheres hagenuzos, which he puts in italics here, when before the tzimtzum happens, because genuzos means hidden completely. That even though it's a theoretical source of 10 spheros up there, they don't present themselves in any way as to sort of be in any conflict with the simple Or Ein Sof that's everywhere. So they're hidden, means their entire existence is wrapped only in potential. I think that's basically where we got up to.
And we talked about it as like a drop in the ocean, which is
Okay, examples. Yeah, I'm just saying inside.
Right. I think we're in. Hey.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, we take it from the line that starts Shah Gavul. It's about 6 lines down from the Os Hey. And right, the last word on the line before that. So once the gavul, the limitation which is already inherent in it, but hidden, once it comes to revelation through the tzimtzum does do that. It isolates this light by itself for the first time. So then, then all of a sudden, it has the ability to actually invest into vessels, right? It already had that potential when it was in the Or Ein Sof. It has it further now when it comes in, it becomes a little kav. And now that it's a little kav, it's mamash tailor-made to actually be finite light that fits inside of vessels. Okay, so we'll go on. What's the reason for this, that this light is at the level of finite, it's gavul? Even though the gedder, the sort of boundary, the definition of light in general is that it's devuk ba'etzem ume'eina etzem. Those are two important terminologies there. Starting to heat up. Right? So it's devuk ba'etzem ume'eina etzem. Devuk ba'etzem is clinging to the essence, and me'ein ha'etzem means it's etzem like, and those two things basically go together. We're talking about light, remember. So if you see that light is always glued to the source of where it comes out of, right? You have a light source, the light comes out. It's literally touching the source. That means davuk. It's like glued, right? And that's one of the qualities of light, right? There's other things, like for example vessels, right? There's basically two things, right? There's light and vessels. Vessels, the way that they sort of manifest themselves is in a style that they don't look like they're glued to the source. That's kind of the whole thing about light, about vessels, right? It's like it just sort of seems independent. It came out. It's like just like a little bubble that left its source. Light is always showing that it's however far it gets, if it's still light, it's because it's connected back to its source. It's clinging to its source. So there's a big difference here between light and vessels. They both come from the essence, right? The essence produces both of them, but they produce it in different ways. The essence produces light in such a way that the light is always showing on itself that it is a product of the essence. It's being glued to it and clinging to it. Whereas the vessels, they're from the essence in such a way that they don't present themselves like they have anything to do with God, basically. They're attached to their source. And therefore, that's where the concept of like feeling independent comes from. It's basically the difference in the body and the soul. You with me?
Wow. We're vessels.
We have light and vessel. We have a soul, which is clinging to Hashem, and all it wants to do is mitzvahs every second.
Really light,
but it's like trapped inside of a body who is being manifested in such a way where its devekus is built in nikeris. I'm using these words because it means its clingingness is not recognizable. Nothing in general is not clinging to the essence of Hashem. The vessels just look like they're presented in such a way where they appear to have a distance from the essence. But really, nothing's outside of the essence. Everything's constantly a state of devekus to Hashem. But Hashem has these sort of two ways of presenting Himself, right?
Are the Klis independent from the Olam Maleh?
That's a great question. Yes, that's kind of where we're going, right?
So that makes them like independent parts of the Ein Sof that came out.
The Kalim is it's just like light is a product of the essence, but it shows itself to be a product of the essence.
Right.
Kalim are also a product of the essence, who are in a state of not showing themselves to be a product of the essence. What good does that do? I'll tell you right away. They're even more of a symbol of the essence than the light is. It looks like there's like nebach, like you guys came out funny, right? But it's the other way around. Because the essence is truly independent, it's the only thing that is independent, period. There's nothing else that's independent except for the essence of God. Wow. Everything else is dependent on Him. right? Period. That's a large statement, including everything, right? Nonetheless, these vessels, when they come out looking and feeling independent, they're actually more essence-like than the light, which comes out feeling and looking dependent. So there's a Hashem is actually trying to show Himself with these vessels, just like He's trying to show Himself with the light. And in fact, in a certain way, the vessels do a better job of it than the light does, because it shows almost the greatest quality that Hashem has, which is that He is independent. There's no one in charge of Him. So vessels who feel like we are independent and no one's in charge of us, we are essence-like in that way. It's the only way Hashem knows how, apparently, to bring that facet out of Himself, is to create these vessels that feel independent.
The vessels temporary compared the inside, the light is not temporary?
Nope. They're both equally products of the essence. It's like you have one child who's a boy, one child who's a girl. You can't say this one or that one. They're the same. They have equal access, equal representation of the essence of God. And the vessels also are eternal and will last forever. Because Hashem they're from Him. Right?
So while the kelim are as such, then the neshama is a representation of, like, it's a light, but the general neshama isn't, like, the Jewish neshama is from the Ein Sof, like we've talked about that, like it's like its own thing. The general neshama, the one that just enlivens all bodies, do we know the origin of that light?
Sure.
Is that Sovev?
No. I mean, it's just light that has already gone into the creation.
Light
Light that's already gone into the creation versus light which stems from places beyond the creation.
And that's what the neshama elokus
That's the
is.
difference. Yeah, that's what the neshama elokus, the nefesh elokis is.
You're saying that
Yeah, go ahead.
because the vessel, the kalim, are apparently independent, that's what puts
Right.
them closer to
That's basically
what makes them expression of. That's all.
Exactly, 100%.
So there's only four
And that gets the whole
different things. Is that correct? To say, like, there's the kalim, then there's the three different types of lights, and then Sovev and Orion Sof are very similar in their
What,
properties.
3 different types of lights did you say?
If you differentiate Sovev with Orion Sof.
But we didn't.
Right,
We made
that's what I'm saying. Like, if you would, but if you're not doing that, then it's really just 3 different types of things that make up the creation. In terms of just like the mamale, like the kalim, like the vessels, the mamale, the light that fills the vessels,
Mhm.
and then the stuff above that.
The Soviv light.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm with you.
Everything kind of. Wow.
Let's stay together here, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to break down our lights and our vessels. Okay, so the idea is like this. We're in the middle of a tricky sentence. That's why I'm sort of flying around here. But it says like this. The reason that this light is at a state of gavul, we're talking about the Esser spheres haganus, the hidden 10 spheres, the source of the kav inside the Or Ein Sof. How can there be gavul there when the whole concept of light is that it's davuk to the etzem, it's clinging to the etzem, and it's me'ena or, and it's etzem like, meaning what? That if your light is glued to a fluorescent light in this Beis medrash, right? It's also essence-like, which means it's gonna go as far as that little engine of fluorescentness can take it, right? Which means it's not going to shine into the next room. It has a certain limitation based on the source. The sun light will go much further than this fluorescent light because the source it's source-like. The light is a reflection of its source. You getting there? See where we're going with this?
Okay,
So light that comes off the essence of God is by definition infinite, right? By definition, if it's source-like, and it's clinging to its source in order to reveal its source outward, it's going to be. That's where infinite light comes from, because you can never end describing the essence of God. It goes on forever. So basically, just like Hashem is infinite, the light which intends to describe Him is infinite. And herein lies our question: what are you talking about Esser spheres haganuzos for? How can you tell me there's a finite breed of light inside of light, which is clinging to its source, which is infinite? It's not finite, right? That you see the question? So this goes on kind of what we were just saying before about the vessels. That the essence is more than you think it is. Light alone cannot describe the essence. You see what I'm saying? Essence also produces vessels, like I said a moment ago, right?
It's metaphors, isn't it?
But here's the thing: when it comes to vessels, you asked a second ago, is the mamale light different than the vessel? And it is, because even though vessels are going to be sort of hatched from the essence, the light that's able to go into those vessels also has to be hatched from the essence. And infinite light is not able to go into a finite vessel. So that light is not a candidate to go into the vessels that Hashem wants to create. He has to create a new type of light, which is called the Esser Spheres HaGenuzos, which is also light, not vessel, whose function is that eventually, when you'll get around to making the vessels, I will be tailor-made light that can fit into vessels.
Wow.
And the idea behind it is that while it's busy clinging to the essence and one with the Or Ein Sof, its finiteness is in a state of helam. It's genuzos. It doesn't tamper with the fact that it has 10 spheres. It doesn't tamper with its ability to be clinging to the essence and infinite at the same time, because its 10 sphere possibility in there is not presenting itself yet until vessels will come around, until it seems to will happen. So it's basically like this drop of water in the ocean type of scenario going. It doesn't have an identity at that level. But it's in there in potential, and it needs to be in there in potential because something's got to have to go into these vessels, right? But it doesn't at the same time contradict the fact that it's clinging to the essence and infinite at the same time that it's somehow finite.
This is the great connection. It's like the Seder Ishtal Shalus is the Mamale light, which came from the Acer Spheres of Geniza when they were in their potential state.
Right, it's the source of Mamali. And the other light, which it's sitting inside of, is the source of Sovi. And if you recall from yesterday's class, we started from the bottom up.
The other light is the source of Sovi.
The infinite light of ocean that the drop of water is inside of, that rest of the ocean besides the drop is the source of what's going to be later called Soviv light, in the lower worlds.
So that is from the Ein Sof in a more direct way.
It has that
it's not
quality of. I said it's the source of it. I mean,
right.
Any light which is inside of the Kaab is already tzimtzum.
Right.
But inside of that light, there's feelings of, and longings for this infinite light which is completely beyond the tzimtzum, which presents itself to the tzimtzum as Or Sovev. Whereas the light that goes into vessels inside of the Seder Yishtal Shlus is drawing from its source, which is the Esser Spheres HaGenuzos. So in every single world, every single person, every single entity, you have an aspect of 10 spheros, and you have an aspect of Or Sovev. Yeah, because it never actually left.
There. Yeah.
It never actually left.
Yeah, it's part of the Ein Sof.
Right, and so it's actually filling the whole space. There is no Kav. This whole notion that the Kav came out is only in our perspective. So the Or Ein Sof that's surrounding the Kav, and in other words, the drop is still in the middle of the ocean at some level. So therefore, that light is still everywhere. But that's what makes it Sovev. We can't experience it.
Wow.
All right, so going on.
Mashiach.
We want Mashiach now.
Amen.
All right, so going
That's
on.
the idea, right?
Right, that's the light of Mashiach. We'll
That's like
eventually
Mashiach, is that we will be able to
access that.
access
Okay, so anyway, this light is Gevul, but don't let that contradict the fact that it's still Davuk and cling to the Etzem and Etzem like. How is that possible? Ki in Yanu shel Or Zeh, the line starts who? Ki in Yanu shel Or Zeh, hu lahayir es ha'olamos. Because this light has a different intention by the Creator. The other light is there in order to reveal infinity, reveal the essence. This light is originally designed to come out so that it can shine into worlds. It has a different kavanah, this light. As we already said, it's in order to shine into the vessels that will eventually surface.
Magic word is intention, you said.
Yes, it's inyono. He calls it the inyono. Its inyan is to shine into worlds. And this is the difference between the infinite light, which is the shorish of Or HaSovev, which is the root of, in this, what we now, in our perspective, with the Or HaSovev, and the Or HaShabbachinas Gevul, and the light which is limited, HaShorish the Or Mamali, which is the source of what we call the Or Mamali, the filling in light, Right? This is the difference between them. Sha'or habli gavul, this is an important sentence, that the infinite light, hu lo bichdei laha'ir, it doesn't come off Hashem in order to shine. It's so interesting. Right? You can have a light. There's like a kavanah in light. Are you there to like light something up? Or are you just like the automatic consequence of me being the sun? See what I'm saying? In other words, the sun doesn't necessarily shine. It depends how you look at it. It doesn't necessarily shine in order to get to the earth, to have its light come to the earth. It could just be that what it is has revelation. It comes out of it in every direction. It's not there to shine. It's just shiny, right? And so this is there's two types of light. The infinite light is not there in order to shine its light. It's there merely to reveal the essence. That the essence is not to anybody. That's the difference. It's not there to reveal the essence to somebody. It's just there to reveal the essence. That the essence can be in a state of showing itself as opposed to not showing itself. It's not necessarily showing itself to somebody.
Well, and the to somebody would be the kalim, which it doesn't like.
Doesn't mean have yet.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's just in a pure state of revelation.
Right, and therefore it's infinite. And what's the proof that it's not there to show itself to anybody? It's not fit to show itself to anybody. For there to be in anybody means you have to be finite, and this light is essence-like, and it's not able to show itself to anybody. So that's a proof that it's not there to show itself to anybody. It's just there to shine. Vagam shagam gila zeh. Oh, now he's going to really throw us off here. Vagam shagam gila zeh hu bishvil eza kavana. Now he sort of turns the table on us. Keep that in your mind, and this at the same time. That even though also this revelation, it must be for something. We were saying it's just sort of there almost like automatically, just as a symbol, like it has to be there almost because Hashem's essence can shine if it wants to. But he's saying it's actually done with kavana. It has a tachlis, an interest in it. Its interest is not necessarily to shine into the world, because it's irrelevant to shine in that light into the worlds. But what's its interest? He says you can be sure it has an interest. Shaharei, and this is an interest. This is the distinction of the Or Ein Sof from the sun as a metaphor. L'mayla ein shayach hechrech chas v'shalom. It's an important line because above it's not shayach to say, but something has to be. The sun has to shine its light. So even if it's not trying, its intention is not to shine its light to me or to bring light into the world, although it is. But let's just say it wasn't. It doesn't have a choice but to reveal itself. Hashem does have a choice whether to reveal himself or not. The Or Ein Sof does not have to shine. Just because Hashem is infinite, he doesn't have to reveal infinite light out of him. So the fact that he does decide to show his revelation, it must be for some reason. Even though it doesn't seem like the reason is to get to us, because it's a light which we can never perceive. But at the end of the day, so if it's not, so what did he do it for? Why? There's an interest behind it, because he doesn't just have to shine infinitely.
There's also a different aspect of it too, that it's used as the object which all other forms of light try to return to, aspire to, and try to cling to.
Okay, very good, very good. I like that. We're going to get to that. In other words, what you're crawling into there is what is the actual kavanah of it, and ultimately, without getting, I don't want to confuse everybody, but without getting too confusing, ultimately it is for the sake of the world, right? Because that's what he's basically saying in a parenthesis. Why would he make it, even though it's beyond the world to perceive it?
Yeah,
but ultimately, it doesn't have to be there. It's that he decided, as you're saying, he decided to make the finite world come out of an infinite place. That's its intention.
Right.
Because why? So that we would have this ability. If we just were finite, I'm going from the other Maimorim. I don't want to confuse you guys, but if we're on the topic, how often do we get here? If we just made finite light, then we would never be able to nullify ourselves out of existence. Because the fact that our origin already comes from a place where we're bittul b'metzias, where the Esser spheres haganuzos are a drop in an ocean, and that drop is non-existent. So even when the drop comes out of the ocean, it still can taste the ocean. And therefore it can arrive at such a level of bittul that it can disappear. If you didn't create the infinite light from which to draw the finite light, the world would never have gotten to such an ability. And therefore, even though that light is not for the sake of the world, it ultimately, its purpose was for the sake of the world. It came out, he only revealed that light which is infinitely beyond the worlds for the sake of the worlds. There's much more to say about that topic. There's full maimarim about that topic. But for now, that's suffice. L'chein. Did I skip something?
After it says.
Okay, right. Hakavana begiloi or zeh, hi she'giloi kazeh shenyanu hu lo lahayir el giloi etzem. So he says something else here. This is what I didn't want to confuse you. He says that no. What was the purpose of this light? I mean, it's connected. That there should be a type of revelation whose whole inyan is not to shine to somebody, but just to reveal Hashem's essence. So it didn't have to come out. But having come out, it wasn't there so he could give it to anybody. It was there just so he would have a type of light which was infinite and beyond everybody. Not to shine to somebody. And therefore, in that breed of the light, the truly infinite light, which is there not to shine to anybody, it's not relevant any limitation or measure, any 10 spheros, even hidden, cannot be found in that light. In other words, the 10 hidden spheros are actually hiding inside of that light. But in other words, they don't put their characteristics onto the light. They're just sort of like ducking out in there somewhere. But the light itself has no trace of 10 spheros, because it doesn't even have any leanings towards ever being perceived by any vessels or worlds.
No intentions there.
No intention of shining to somebody. It has the intention of dafka, shining infinitely that nobody can understand it.
And there is no somebody.
Right.
Right.
By definition, there's no somebody there.
In the infinite, yeah.
So now what happens when you make a tzimtzum and you bring the kav? Does this light just completely disappear? No. Even after you shine into vessels and into worlds, eino ba behem bislavshus v'rak makif aleihem soviv. It also shines right through them. It shines to them. As we said a moment ago, this light never goes away. The tzimtzum is only to us. Right. But it shines to them in such a way that it's permeating everybody and they have no idea that it's there. Because that's the nature of this light. It doesn't shine to anybody. It's shining to itself. And nobody can perceive it because it doesn't have any edges. Right? So it's fully blasting through every single entity, from down to the minuscule to the very large. It's everywhere all the time, and equally nobody has any grasp of it. The highest of the highest vessels can have no idea what it is, just like the lowest of the lowest have no idea what it is.
And it's the only thing when it gives from itself, it doesn't lack because of it.
Okay, I'm with you there.
Like a full pitcher that doesn't, like if it pours into a cup, the level of the
water
doesn't change.
So this is the definition of what we call makif. So if you recall, we said that what we call makif and sovev, in our little lexicon, it has a source in its root in the light before the tzimtzum. And that's what we're saying now. Now we understand what that means. Basically that this light before the tzimtzum, which we call makif to us, it now has a relationship with the worlds. It's the light the worlds can't perceive. Really, why is it this? So you say there's no difference really between makif and Ein Sof, or sovev and Ein Sof. Because this that we call it sovev to us, it's really because in itself it's not for us, it's for itself. And therefore when it finally comes down and shines to us, it's not for us, it's a light which we can't perceive. We call it soviv to the worlds. That's because implicitly it's bechlal soviv to the worlds. It's Ein Sof, which is not relevant to any grasp. Let's go maybe one more line, running a little low on time. Or shlahaya olamos, this light, which is there to shine to the worlds, Hagam. Let's see if we can do it. Okay. Hagam gam or zehu devuk be'etzem u'me'eina etzem. Also, this little light of the Esfer spheres of Genuzos, it's also clinging to the essence. It's also essence-like, because that's what we said. The nature of light was. Mikol makom, nonetheless, but since this light is for the worlds, ha'olamos tofsim makom lagabe. The worlds, like tofes makom means like they take up space. as far as it's concerned. In other words, it has to reckon with the worlds. Whereas this other light doesn't reckon with the worlds at all because it's like in its own mind, it doesn't even know there's such a thing as worlds. This light, it reckons with the worlds because its whole purpose of being emanated to begin with was to shine into worlds. So even in its very, very core origin, where it's still clinging to the essence and essence-like, it has a different philosophy. Because it knows from worlds at that level because it was streaming from the essence in order to shine to them eventually. So they are meaningful to it. And they sort of take up space in its consciousness. So really there's two types of light that are essentially emanate from the essence because, as we said before, the essence has sort of two versions of itself. Finite and infinite. And even in the infinite, which is the light, there's a finite version of the light which is going to eventually attach itself to the finiteness. Therefore, even as it is before the tzimtzum, at that point, it's not relevant at all to shine into worlds. It's still, there's no tzimtzum even yet. Nonetheless, it does have implicitly inside of it some measure and some limitation. Whereas the Or Ein Sof at that level had none. It has there the Esser Spheros. Oh, Genuzos, okay, they're totally hidden and without any real existence, but they're there. Because it has a whole different intention, this light. And after eventually it will shine into vessels and worlds, it, unlike the other light, will actually climb into their parameters, as opposed to the other light which just blasts over them, through them, and the worlds have no perception of it. This light, when it finally comes to the worlds, it crawls inside of them, because the worlds are significant to it, because even when it was originally released, it already had the intention of shining into the world. The end.
Or is it?
Right.
I'll read today in Parsha that when they're repeating the Ten Commandments, and it says for 2,000 generations, if you do it out of love, if you do it out of fear, it's 1,000 generations. So you get more for the love.
I think less than 1,000 even, no?
What's it 1,000 in the Parsha?
1,000?
So that means
it's 2 to 1?
2 to 1. Well, that's what it said. 2,000 to
Wait.
1,000 generations.
In terms of doing...
Your generations.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that means that by doing it out of love instead of fear, the love is coming first. So it's a little confusing, but I won't get into it now because it's going to take time.
Say it again.
If it's 2,000 generations out of love, that's only 1,000 generations out of fear.
Okay.
That means doing it out of love is greater than fear. It's obvious.
So because what we're saying there is once you've entered into the basic mitzvah performance, which is fear, okay, then you can start to be in that space in greater and greater levels of awareness. So that is already climbing the ladder, right? The ladder says fear, love, fear.
So I think about 2,000 is something different we're talking about. Same thing?
It's the same thing. It's two fear amongst many. It's like
No, it's a good English word, a definition.
You have an autocrat.
No, he's a supreme autocrat. You got to add the word supreme in front, otherwise.
Well, then at that point, even worse. God, you get the point. I guess he likes titles.
What am I doing?
Supreme
Stop making the
face
face
at your service.
Yeah. So we know how like. So what are you doing today? Hey, I'm helping you. What? That's it? Something else?
I don't like when he just made fun of me.
Oh.
I hate it.
Oh.
Do you know why some people will come and I can do Loshen Hora just because of stuff like that?
Oh.
It's because of stuff like that that I don't want to come.
Wait a minute, maybe it was me, because I was just.
No, it was
adding a
him.
little
He said,
levity.
it was him who said it. It pisses me off. Because it's, a lot of people I know won't come here because of that. And I keep quiet. And I just bow my head. And someone who's a great rabbi here said, listen, when you go here, just bow your head. When you hear some crap like that, bow your head. It pisses me off, man. I tell you. When he's making fun of me, I'm just coming. He's making fun of me right now. Oh, I'm still autocrat.
I had a conversation with him, and we got to the point where fear is not,
Yeah, I tell you.
And
I start shaking when I don't have many friends here to go relate to, but he starts like making fun of me. It's not the first time he's done it. I still have it on record that he apologized. What do you think? I won't say the names. People won't come here specifically because they don't like the way he acts. That's it. But you call Lucian Hora, I'm telling you, they don't want to come anymore. They don't want to come.
I think it was because he was just getting in on the level.
No, he doesn't like my philosophy because he doesn't like what I think. I know that because I've been around great saintly people who just don't talk, who act godly.
He doesn't like
Not
what
just-
anybody thinks except for his
Exactly.
golden boy there.
He's the golden boy. I'm telling you.
You know, I ask any question, dude. Do you see how I get shot down? You know the thing about like
I know.
being permanent. Where did I get that from?
It's like
I
a
got
battered
it,
wife.
I got it from him, dude, and then he didn't remember it, which was really embarrassing.
I know.
So I didn't want to get into
But it pissed me off. Right now, he just made fun of me right now. I don't go there to make, All right. So there's a lot of things that he don't know that I can understand now, but I go because of things that I don't know. When he makes fun of me,
It's pleasure and pain, isn't it?
he makes fun of me, it really upsets me.
Don't take it personal.
I do take it personal. What do I take it?
Try not to.
I can't, but it's impossible to because
I know.
it's definitely directed toward me. He just made fun of me right now.
Stuff is over there.
He
Can't
just
walk
made
this way anymore.
fun of me right now. He made fun of me.
You know what?
So what he did,
Nobody noticed that.
I did.
I know.
I noticed it
No,
very
you did.
heavily.
I see you did.
and I hate it. And I don't, sometimes I